expect a lot of volatility this week. Why do I say that? Because by today, we should have the CPI inflation numbers, and expectations are coming in hot. That's going to have a lot of volatility added to the markets. Then within 2 to 3 days, we have SpaceX IPO that's already attracted over $250 billion in demand. With a $2.2 trillion evaluation, this could be very alarming for the markets. Then we have major escalation happening with Iran versus US. Helicopters shot down while US is launching new strikes against the IRGC. But somehow the price of oil is coming down in all of this, which is reasonably shocking to me. The SPX is currently coming towards local high, and that could be signaling towards volatility and a possible downwards move. Adding on top of that, the CPI print out is going to have massive impacts towards any future rate hikes that could be coming our way. All of this would put pressures on what happens with risk assets, and we're going to cover how Bitcoin and Ethereum get affected by that as well in today's video. Hello everyone, and welcome to Strategic Markets, your place for technical and fundamental analysis all at once. Now, into our midweek session, and with Steve being away today, I will be your host. Steve is dealing to some personal matters, so I'm more than happy to take you guys through my updates and keep you guys informed with this week's market moves. So on that, let's begin our story. So first of all, Iran was just given a 2-day ultimatum to reach a deal. Now, this is massive news, guys, because if they don't do anything in the next 2 days, well, they will have another 2 weeks or maybe even another 2 months. Look, we have gotten used to this now. It's a little bit frustrating, but we hear one thing come out from Trump and then the other thing ends up happening. And it's called taco for a reason. Trump always chickens out. So in that particular case, yeah, this doesn't really mean anything until we see something concrete. And what is concrete is that an American Apache helicopter was shot down by the IRGC, and then US launched new strikes against the IRGC in retaliation to that. So we are in major escalation between these particular two countries, and as much as I would like to give you some positive news or hopes, right now, no one's buying what Trump is saying over here. There's a lot of news and media outlets. I think it's become a little bit of a joke every time we think that there's going to be an agreement. But what is even a bigger joke to me, and this is my honest opinion on this, is the price of oil. I've been looking at this and I found this basic ascending wedge pattern a long time back, and it's dropping. And to the technical, it's dropping very relevantly from this particular pattern. But the geopolitical events actually hasn't gone away. If anything, we're in rougher territory than where we were 1 to 2 months ago. So look, the market must be either really in belief that we are going to have a peace deal very soon, which sounds alarming to me, but sure, I guess I'm not in America, so I don't know the full swing of things, or this is just market manipulation. Put down in the comments what you guys think it is, if it's market manipulation or whether this peace deal is actually flowing through in the next couple of days. I'm interested to hear what you have to say. But on that, we'll continue on ahead. Within this particular day, we are going to have the CPI inflation number. Now, the expectations are 4.2% year-on-year headline. That's a really high number. And if that's an expectation, look, I can't really sit here and say that if we come within that number, we'll be fine. Because generally, anything above 3% is already very troublesome. If we are looking at a hot print, then at the end of the day, we're looking at rate hike expectation, bonds going lower, risk assets just getting hammered. And, Bitcoin and Ethereum are already at a bad place. This is just going to make things worse. So expect volatility. I'll keep saying that this video. If we have a soft print, though, this gives the Fed some breathing room, relief rally in bonds and equities, and possibly a bit of ease in the markets. So the key question is whether the Iran war shock stays contained or we basically bleed into our retail and wholesale trade consistently. SpaceX has their IPO. Okay, and that's coming in the next 2 to 3 days. They've already attracted over $250 billion in demand. So they have nearly 4x oversubscribed what their initial buy-in was at 75 billion. This is going to have a massive impact on the markets and how SPX react, which is why I can really see the markets going in any direction. Because right now, we are hitting local highs in the market. And if the CPI print comes bad and Kevin Walsh has something negative to say about this, then we actually do have a room to go down to test this 20-week SMA at about 6,900 or the 7,000 level for the SPX. But if the IPO for SpaceX goes very well, then I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to touch these highs again. Or on the logarithmic graph of the SPX, we start to go and start touching this 8,000 level and keep even moving higher if Trump can even secure a peace deal until then. So those all play into massive impact as to how the SPX perform. But all I'm saying is for the next week or so, expect volatility, guys, because these two news events added with the fact that we're going to hear Kevin Walsh speak for the first time next week. And this is a big deal because you're talking about the next Fed chair, how he views the economic health of US itself, and then how he positions the Fed to either cut or raise interest rates for the US as well. So right now he's saying that the 6.7 billion that the Fed injects on a monthly basis into the market is not a good thing. If anything, the Fed should exit markets outside of crisis. He doesn't believe that the market should be fueled with QE while we are in inflation. So the guy we were actually betting on for easy money is coming basically against it. So this was really interesting news. And based off our Fed watch considerations that we had last time we saw this particular chart, we're expecting a rate hike on the 27th of Jan 2027. This has actually moved up now earlier to the 9th of December 2026. And rate hikes influence risk assets a lot. And based off that, when we look at risk assets, you can just see Bitcoin is in a horrible position right now. Last time we had a CPI reading was sometime over here around the 11th of May week, and we just went down massively. Now we're coming again to the middle of June. And look, it wouldn't surprise me if we have massive volatility and we just drop down to this 57K level or our prior support from 2024 to the 54K level. That's where the market's going to be next looking for support. And it's just tough because I was hoping that we hold this 200-week SMA line at about 61,800. But when we look at this particularly on the daily, it doesn't look like so that we are respecting it. So considering the next 24 hours is going to be expecting volatility, be prepared for any downside targets that might come your way. But I do want to give you some reasonable hope as to when we get out of this. This is the copper versus gold chart. Basically, I've highlighted to you in the past that the copper versus gold chart, whenever it moves up, it signals strength in the American economy, right? And what that particularly means is that when copper is being used more than gold, that signals we're investing in infrastructure, in electric cars, semiconductors, and more manufacturing. So that has a play in productivity, and that just basically means that America has more opportunity for growth. When we look over here, and we overlay Bitcoin's chart, last time we were at the low of copper versus gold, and we started making our way up to break through the 200-week SMA. Bitcoin's price made a breakthrough of its last all-time high at about 19,700. So this was a really great indicator to show when copper versus gold broke through its 200-week SMA, Bitcoin had already come towards its prior all-time high and broken above it as well. And that took 27 weeks from the low where we were in 2020. Now, where are we at right now? Well, copper versus gold is not that far away from touching the 200-day SMA and breaking above it. So that could be a really good momentum shift for Bitcoin if it chooses to rhyme with the previous cycle. Now, markets don't really repeat exactly what they do last time, but they do seem to rhyme. And if American economy health consistently keeps moving upwards relevant to this particular indicator, then 27 weeks from now is sometime around the 7th of September. So do we claim the all-time high of Bitcoin on the 7th of September? It's definitely not a guarantee, but that could be a little bit of a hopeful indicator we can look towards moving to. Maybe we start bottoming out in the next couple of weeks. We start moving up and we start seeing some things go well towards September. Something to just keep in mind. Another thing is Ethereum versus USD. That one, we were finding support on this particular green line over here within these 1-2 touch points. On the third touch point, we broke down on the weekly, which is fairly bearish. I could definitely see us coming down towards 1545 in the next 24 hours very easily, because that was a prior point of support many times, end of 2023 and then 2025 as well. So it's a very relevant touch point over here for us to find support before deciding where the direction of the market is. And considering there's so much volatility in the next 24 to 72 hours, it wouldn't surprise me either or, with SpaceX sucking up some liquidity or the inflation data that we get. So keep that in mind. But on another aspect, though, altcoins against Bitcoin. This is becoming very interesting because over the last 5 weeks, we have been showing strength in altcoins versus Bitcoin, which is really interesting to see. And we're coming to test this multi-year support line over here, set from 2022 up till now. We actually broke above it, but you can see that the market respected it and was like, nope, I'll let you wick above it, but you have to come back down. So you can see that there's a lot of people in altcoins trying to bring strength into the market, and a breakthrough for this could really signal strength. And you might be asking, why is altcoins doing this? We're setting fresh lower lows on Bitcoin. How is it that altcoins somehow are showing strength over the last 5 to 6 weeks? And that could be because there is a lot of dynamism in terms of banks building on Ethereum's infrastructure. We also had the Crypto Clarity Act this particular week, where 200 institutions came together and basically wrote a letter to the Senate saying, hey, you have to pass Clarity Act, which will give clarity to crypto infrastructure in the US economy and basically provide some protections to the consumers who use crypto for financial infrastructure. So that could be a very good thing. And if that gets pushed for sign off by Trump on 4th of July, which is the date that they're aiming for, then crypto as an industry is going to have good legislative standing in America and have a really good use as an investable asset. So if all that progresses, that's looking great too. But while you're keeping up with those regulations, you're also seeing stories such as Coinbase revealing its first mortgage-backed Bitcoin collateral under Fannie Mae coverage. So someone basically put down some of their Bitcoin. Now, I read into this a lot. Basically, someone bought a property of somewhat about $4 million, and they put Bitcoin down as collateral towards their down payment and towards the total price of the property itself. And what that basically did is that they came under one whole loan and under an umbrella for monthly repayments, which is really cool. And when you think about it, Bitcoin being used as an ETF structure, that was a big deal 2 years ago, right? Now, Bitcoin being used as collateral, what do you think happens when it's considered a collateral in terms of sell pressure? There's basically none. Because at the end of the day, it just has to sit there as an asset while payments towards a house are made. Now, you can make the case, yes, if they go into bankruptcy and can't make payments towards a house, then that, yes, the Bitcoin gets sold off from a collateral perspective. But that is much more rare than basically the sale of an ETF of Bitcoin holding versus selling. If you're using Bitcoin as a collateral, that's definitely a very good thing in the market and creates more locked up pressure for Bitcoin and not a lot of sell pressure in the market for it, which would be very good for leading for the next couple of years, because the real estate economy in America is like $100 trillion asset class. And if Bitcoin gets to contribute anything towards that, considering it's only something about $1 trillion asset, then yes, it's a very big deal for Bitcoin. And all of these news events lining up together play a massive role. And that's why we were talking to you about it in the last video. AI assets are already at their all-time highs or making all-time highs or even testing local highs right now. But there are other opportunities in the market as oil keeps flowing down and as crypto assets are looking as though they're slowly bottoming out for you to position yourself correctly. Now, obviously, this is not financial advice and you always have to do your own research, but that is the points that I wanted to make for today. So if you found this particularly beneficial, or if you like what you saw today, please drop us a like. That goes a long way towards encouraging us to make this content. If there's anything we could do better or anything that you particularly like you want to share, please drop us a comment. That goes a long way. And if you have enjoyed this particular journey, then why not subscribe? It really goes well with us when you come along the journey as well. So with that, I also want to say I'm look forward to having Steve on the next video. He is off today. If you're still here, please put the words Bitcoin collateral in the comments. I really love seeing who is watching these videos. I will give you a call out on the next week's video. Thank you, Mark, for always giving us your support. And on that, thank you so much for joining into this particular video, guys. We will see you on the next one.